What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of interAXEtion, where we sit down and we answer your music theory questions. So, as always, it is a pleasure to be here and share in your reality. So let us answer questions, good questions. Speak up, let your voice be heard, and let us elucidate on some musical theories. First question. I'm trying to figure out what the characteristic note of every mode of harmonic minor is. I know what mode 1 is, the raised 7th. How do I figure out the other mode? This is a really good question, and this goes for every mode, not just harmonic minor. Okay? So if you Google modes or a certain mode and you're looking at the interval structure of these modes, right, you're seeing the intervals like a root note, a second, third, fourth, fifth. Some are sharp, some are flat, right, depending on the mode you're playing with. Identify the root triad 7th chord of that particular mode. Any mode. The first note of that mode. So you're going to look at the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. What chord does that give me? Right? So let's say you said you were in harmonic minor. So let's look at another mode from harmonic minor. Phrygian dominant, right? It's the 5th mode of harmonic minor. The interval structure of that mode is a root, a flat 2nd, a 3rd, 4th, 5th, a flat 6th, and a flat 7th, right? So if we look at that, we have a root, a 3rd, a 5th, and a flat 7th. That's a dominant chord, okay? So now, what are the other notes left? There's only 3 of them, okay? So what are the other notes that are left? All right, we have a flat 2, we have a 4, which is an 11, and we have a flat 13. All right, so obviously that flat 2 or flat 9 is going to be really characteristic of that mode. But that's my point. That's what you want to look at. Identify the triad or the 7th chord of the mode, and then the 3 remaining notes, how do they impact that chord? What do they bring, what sort of flavoring do they bring to that particular chord? Hey Greg, massive fan of your lessons, the best guitar channel on YouTube. I have a question about riff writing, in particular time signatures and writing a call and response. Say you write a riff in 9/8 and each call and response is one 9/8 measure. Or could you instead have a 4/8 cell and a 5/8 response within one 9/8 bar? Or would this mean the riff is no longer considered 9/8 and instead alternating between 2 meters, the 4 and the 5? Or is there no difference? Is it still connected to 9/8? What is your approach to creating a call and response, each with its own separate measure, or can it vary? Thanks. Well, that's an intense question. It's a good question though, and thank you for the praise. I appreciate you liking the channel. So, a call and response, for those of you who don't know, is basically a phrase, right? A question, and then you would answer that with the next phrase. And a lot of times, maybe rhythmically something's different, or a note changes, right? You hit this melodic note, and then you hit that melodic note, and there's movement between there, and that kind of creates a call and response, or a question and answer. So that is what he's talking about here, okay? So this is something that I do all the time. I'm constantly creating variations with my riff, where I'll play one thing one way, and it'll end going up, and then I'll do it again, and it'll end going down. But that direction usually has a purpose, right? Maybe the first time it's going to kind of maybe turn it back around or create tension, and then maybe the second time lead stepwise into wherever I'm going. I'm just throwing out examples here, okay? So what you're talking about is the phrasing of these meters that you're breaking down into. And basically, yes, you can think about it in a macro sense where the entire thing is 9/8, and then you have another 9/8, right? And then if you actually wanted to break down the call and response within the measure and have a 4 and a 5, you can totally do that. You're just accenting your riff. It's still 9/8, but you're giving it an accent pattern of 4 and 5. And then maybe you can play with that in some cool polymetric way if you really wanted to get into it. But personally, I like to stretch my call and answers a little farther. I want to give them some melodic meaning, right? You want your words to be heard and mean something. So cramming in a call and response within one measure might be a little tight, especially if it's moving down like that. Cool? Awesome question. I hope that helped. If not, let's talk about it more down below. What gauge string do you use on a 7 string? For a 25.5 scale length, I mean, 10 to 46 with a 56 on the bottom or something. This is a good question. Strings, 7 string, I usually play either a set of 10s with a 58, or a hybrid with a 58. So basically 9s on top and then 10s on the bottom. That's if I'm playing standard tuning, drop A kind of stuff. If I'm detuning further than that, I would probably go 10s and 11s hybrid, and I would start there and maybe jump up to a 60. Personally, that's why I like the 7 strings. I don't have to detune as much because, you know, I love playing in drop C or drop B. It sounds fantastic, but you have to put you have to play on 12s, and that's just so uncomfortable for me. I don't like it personally. So that's what I usually do, a 10s and 9 hybrid or a set of 10s, right, with a 58 on the bottom. I don't really have any issues with intonation other than that. Would you say that the price for your Agile guitar is a great bang for the buck against a Les Paul like Adam's guitar? Great video, by the way. It's a really interesting question because you're really comparing, even though one's a copy of one, you're comparing apples and oranges, right? The guitars that Adam Jones uses, I believe, are 70s models Les Pauls, right? And they have a very particular sound that I guess that he really enjoys. Those guitars are like $4,000 or $5,000. So now you're going over to an Agile guitar, which is a nice intermediate guitar at good value, right? You can drop less than $800 and get a nice intermediate guitar that should last you a long time, though I would probably change the pickups. Okay, and that Agile that you saw me talking about, that was actually not my guitar. It was a friend's guitar that I would just use for the videos because it looked good. But yeah, the guitar was heavy, it was solid, and it sounded good. Again, I would change the pickups. So you're really comparing a intermediate beginner value guitar against a vintage $5,000 guitar, and they're not going to be close. Now, if you want to compare Agile to other things on the market, like an Epiphone, now you're kind of right at the same thing. You know, so get the color you want, go to the store, pick one up, and if it resonates and it feels good in your hands, then buy that. Maybe swap out some pickups, put something hotter in. All right? Cool. Awesome question, guys. Thanks a lot. Let's keep the conversation going down below in the comment section. Leave me your music questions, and as always, let me know what you come up with. And until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.